Even if you say that, I already ended the lease for this apartment. Huh? What do you mean? Mom said we should end the lease, so we went to do it together while you were on your business trip. No way, I can't stay with these crazy people anymore. My mother-in-law, Kate, seemed to think that by ending the apartment lease, I would have no choice but to give in. Now you have no choice but to live with us, she said, but I was determined not to. I don't want to. What are you talking about? You're his wife, so you have to. Then I'll divorce him. My name is Sarah, and I'm 30 years old. I work in an office. My husband, Travis, and I got married a year ago. We both work for companies that are business partners. We started working together on projects, became close, and eventually started dating. A year later, we got married. We were happy after getting married. Travis is a funny, positive guy, and we laughed a lot every day. I thought I had married a wonderful person and was very happy, but I didn't know Travis had this side to him. 6 months after our wedding, we spent New Year's at my in-laws' house for the first time. Before that, I didn't interact much with my in-laws, just visited them a few times. That New Year's visit showed me what they were really like. Everyone was there, my parents-in-law and my 2 sisters-in-law. It felt like I was finally part of their family gathering. Travis has 2 sisters, Ashley, who is single, and Anne, who is married with a young son named Tom, and brought Tom, but her husband went to visit his parents. I didn't have any bad feelings about my in-laws before that day. I thought they were friendly and easy to talk to, just like Travis. I was hoping we'd have a normal, pleasant time together, but it didn't go as I expected. Oh, Sarah, can you help me for a minute? Yes, I quickly answered when Kate, my mother-in-law, called me into the kitchen, but as soon as I went in, Kate's smile disappeared, and she gave me a cold look. You're so slow. You should have just helped out without waiting for me to ask. I'm sorry, I said, feeling nervous, thinking I had upset her. From that moment on, I tried my best to help and make Kate trust me again, but she kept saying hurtful things. Stop acting like a spoiled child just because Travis is nice to you, huh? After marriage, you should focus on building a family. Why are you still working at the company? Well, Travis actually let me keep working. That's because you complained until he let you. You're a terrible wife. You sit around in the living room and don't help at all. I can't believe you only do what you want and annoy Travis. Her harsh words really hurt. Then my sister-in-law Ashley came into the kitchen. I felt a little hope because Ashley and I had always gotten along, but to my surprise, she joined in with the criticism too. Wow, Sarah's cooking is awful. What? It's nothing like Mom's food. Does Travis really eat this? It looks like leftovers. I was shocked. I didn't expect Ashley to say something so mean. Kate and Ashley, who had always been polite, were suddenly treating me terribly. The New Year's gathering, which I thought would be fun, turned into a nightmare. Even during the meal, I didn't feel comfortable. Kate and Ashley talked about things only my in-laws understood, leaving me out. Travis, not noticing anything, didn't see what was wrong. When someone needed a drink, Kate would order me around, bring the drinks, hurry. No one said anything about it. It was like they saw me as their servant. When the gathering finally ended, Travis was so drunk he said, "I'm going to stay here." I refused, shoved him into the car, and drove us home. The next day, I tried to talk to Travis about what happened. Hey, Kate and Ashley were really rude to me. What? That's not true. We all had a good time. You're the only one who thinks that. They said a lot of awful things to me in the kitchen. Really? I don't think they would do that. Are you saying I'm lying? Well, I have a headache. Can we talk later? Huh? Come on. As soon as he realized it would take some effort, he ignored me and locked himself in his room. Every time I tried to bring it up again, he avoided the conversation. Then, one day, Travis suddenly said, "We're going to have a gathering at my sister's house next time." I was surprised when Travis suddenly said this, especially since I hadn't been able to talk about what happened at my in-laws' house. Why? It's Tom's birthday. We all need to celebrate together. You have no choice but to come. No way. Travis forced me to go to the birthday party without asking if I wanted to. On top of that, I had to pick out a present for Tom. Travis refused to do it because he was too busy with work. I was busy with work too. I spent my break at work doing research to find the perfect gift for Tom. I wanted him to be happy with it, so I put in a lot of effort to choose something special. A month later, it was Aunt's son Tom's birthday. We each gave him a present. Wow, this is what I wanted. Tom seemed to love the gift I picked out. I was relieved and happy to see him so excited. And said, "Thanks, Travis, you're so busy with work, but you picked out such a great gift for Tom." I thought Travis would explain that I had picked the gift, but instead, he said something I didn't expect. "Oh, don't worry, it's only natural to research a present for Tom. I'm glad he liked it. I picked it out just for him." I couldn't believe it. Travis was taking the credit for the gift I chose. I looked at him in shock, but before I could say anything, Kate spoke up. "Hey, Sarah, what are you doing? Hurry up with the cake." "What cake? What are you talking about?" I asked, confused. Then Kate said something surprising. "The birthday cake. I told you to get it for today." "What? I never heard anything about a birthday cake." "Huh? What kind of wife are you? Don't tell me you didn't prepare it." "Well, I didn't hear anything about a cake." "You mean you didn't get the cake?" No." My in-laws all looked at me with disappointment. "My goodness, you're truly useless. It's my grandchild's birthday." Then Tom, who found out there was no cake, started crying. "I wanted cake." Kate comforted Tom and said, "I'm sorry, Tom, it's sad on your birthday. It's all because someone forgot to get the cake." Kate blamed me and added, "You're awful, Sarah, don't you like Tom? How could you be so mean to him?" Why was I being blamed for this? I looked at Travis, hoping he would step in and explain that Kate never asked me to get the cake, but to my surprise, Travis started agreeing with Kate. "You're a really bad wife, you know that? You've done things to hurt my family." "No way." As Travis said this, Ashley spoke up. "Good thing I bought a cake for something like this." With that, she brought out the cake. Tom's sad face brightened up right away. "Yay, my cake. That's my daughter. I knew something like this would happen," Kate said with a big smile. Ashley added, "Sarah is so clueless, so I got it just in case." That's when I realized they had set me up. They were purposely saying these things to make me look bad. I really wondered what would happen when Sarah said she forgot the cake. As a wife, she's completely useless. Everyone blamed me, and not a single person was on my side. Then Travis said something shocking. "You made Tom cry too, so as punishment, you should go home today." Huh? Don't think the one who did nothing and caused so much trouble should get a free meal and cake. When Travis said that, Kate, Anne, and Ashley all joined in and made me leave. So, I had no choice but to go. Anne's house was far from ours, so I took a cab to the bus station and then a 30-minute bus ride home. I really shouldn't have gone if it was going to be like this. I was the one who picked out Tom's gift while I was working. I wished I could go back and change things. That night, Travis didn't come home. He stayed at his parents' house. The next day, Travis came back. I tried to ask him what happened, but he said he wanted to talk. "You know, I heard you were harassing Kate and Ashley." Huh? What? What are you talking about? You can't get away with this. And about the birthday cake, you must have forgotten on purpose. Do you hate my family that much? You're a terrible wife. I couldn't believe what he was saying, and I couldn't believe he was taking Kate's side. Wait a minute, you don't believe me at all? And if you're going to say that, you've done terrible things too. You acted like you picked out the gift for Tom when it was me. It was a gift from both of us, so I didn't care when I was talking to and about it. I couldn't believe Travis. It was clear he just wanted to look good in front of his family and put all the blame on me. I couldn't feel any love for him after this. If things stayed like this, I'd seriously consider getting a divorce. While I was thinking about everything, something happened that made me decide to take action. I had been on a business trip for 3 days and didn't know anything terrible had happened during that time. When I returned home, I was shocked to see that Travis's things were packed into cardboard boxes. Confused, I quickly called Travis, but he immediately hung up, saying, "I'm on my way, I'll be home soon." I was frustrated, not knowing what was going on. When Travis finally came home, I noticed Kate, Anne, and Ashley were there too. "Travis, what's going on? Why are all your things packed, and why are Kate, Anne, and Ashley here?" I asked. Travis, smiling, answered, "We're moving out." "Move where?" "To my mom's, of course." "What? Wait a minute, why are you making this decision by yourself?" I yelled. Then Kate spoke up. "You don't have the right to decide about this house. Stop being childish and just do what Travis decides," she said. But this wasn't about me being childish. I'm not going to give in this time. Travis and I are married, so we need to talk and decide this together, I said firmly. Kate looked stunned. Even if you say so, I've already ended the lease on this apartment, she replied. What do you mean? Mom told me to, so we went ahead and ended the contract while you were away. No way. This apartment was under Travis's name, so technically, he could end the lease, but I never imagined he'd do it without talking to me first. I can't live with these crazy people anymore, I thought. Kate seemed to think that since she ended the contract, I'd just give up. Now you have no choice but to move in with us, she said. But I wasn't backing down. I don't want to. What do you mean? You're his wife, so you have to, she insisted. If being a wife means I have to do whatever you say, then I'll divorce him. Travis was stunned. Wait, are you serious about a divorce? I wouldn't say it if I wasn't serious. I'm done with you and your family. Let's just separate. Travis was speechless. Then and Ashley, who had been watching, suddenly spoke up. Wait, I won't let you get a divorce. Right, if you don't move in with us, who's going to take care of our dad? Ashley said. Take care of your dad? I asked. Ashley suddenly looked uncomfortable. Oh, I see. That's what this is really about, isn't it? I said. Apparently, my father-in-law had fallen down the stairs and needed care, and my in-laws were hoping I'd take care of him. So, you want me to take care of him? I asked. Someone has to do it, they said. Taking care of other people must be annoying for you all, since you're so selfish, I retorted. Are you insulting us when you're just a useless wife? They shouted. That's right, how dare you, you're just a wife, and Ashley yelled. So, I'm not even the wife anymore? I said. Did you not hear us, or do you forget things quickly? I provoked them, and they became even more upset. That's enough, I don't care anymore, just get a divorce, I don't want to see your face again, and Ashley said angrily. Well, I'll take your advice, I said, and started packing my things. Travis and Kate panicked and yelled at them, take back what you said. They were clearly worried because they knew they'd be in trouble if I really went through with the divorce. As I packed my things and started walking towards the door, Travis and Kate rushed to stop me. Wait, Sarah, I'll make them apologize, please, let's not go through with the divorce, just take care of my dad, Travis pleaded. Yeah, please help him, you could be a stay-at-home mom, and it would be good for you, Kate added. I turned to face my selfish in-laws and said, I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Also, I earn more than Travis, I worked hard to get where I am, and I pay for most of the rent here, which is expensive. I looked at them and continued, so, the person you made fun of, me, is doing better than your family member. That's all I have to say, goodbye, I said and walked out, leaving them stunned. I went back to my parents' house for a while, then hired a lawyer and officially asked for a divorce. Travis, looking really down, quietly agreed. As for Anne and Ashley, Kate asked them to help care for their father, but they both refused and ran away, and even had to pay a large amount of alimony after her affair was discovered by her husband. Ashley, who had been living at home with her mother, started living on her own but couldn't manage to get up on time for work. She ended up getting fired because she was always late. Travis, still living with his parents due to Kate's pressure, is now the one taking care of his father. He's exhausted from balancing work and caregiving every day. Meanwhile, Kate and Travis are constantly fighting, stressed out, and their neighbors complain so much that the police have had to check on them. Most of the neighbors stopped interacting with them, and they became known as the crazy ones. It feels good to see them facing the consequences of everything they did to me. As for me, I've settled into a nice apartment near my office and am living comfortably on my own. I'm thinking of picking up a new hobby since I don't want to be in any relationship for now. The in-laws who pushed everything onto me and made me look bad are now in chaos, and it's satisfying to see them struggle. I wish Sarah a happy life from now on, and I hope she finds a new hobby soon. Thank you for watching till the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
In a quiet residential neighborhood on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, the Reynolds white two-story house was the only one with its living room lights still on among the neat row of homes. The clock showed 10 p.m. Michael, it's bedtime, Patty gently opened the door to her son's room. 8-year-old Michael was still at his desk, reading. His profile in the moonlight was strikingly similar to his father's. Just 5 more minutes, Michael smiled at his mother. His expression had a gentleness unusual for children his age. On his desk were neatly arranged textbooks and an astronomy book borrowed from the library. He was already halfway through it. "You have school tomorrow. Let's finish up for today," Patty spoke to her son with gentle firmness. At 33, she worked 4 days a week at an accounting firm while raising her son alone after divorcing 6 years ago. Well, not alone anymore. Richard, her partner of 4 years, had become part of their new family. Richard Reynolds, 39, had a 10-year career as a sales director at a real estate development company. Standing at 5 feet 11 inches with a well-maintained build, he was always polite and well-regarded in the neighborhood. Most importantly, his good relationship with Michael gave Patty peace of mind. "Is Dad not home yet?" Michael asked while closing his book. "He called to say he'd be late." "Seems busy with a new project," Patty answered, gently stroking her son's head. Richard could set his own schedule and usually made it home for dinner. Lately, though, he'd been coming home late more often, citing work commitments. As she watched Michael get into bed, Patty remembered their meeting 4 years ago. At a mutual friend's wedding, she met Richard and was drawn to his sincere personality and kindness toward Michael. After dating for a year, they married. Since then, they'd lived peacefully in this quiet neighborhood. Weekends were filled with family picnics and movie outings. They were financially stable and maintained good relationships with neighbors. Her accounting job, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., allowed her to be attentive to her son's school life. Michael was in 3rd grade. Smart and thoughtful, he particularly loved reading. Though not athletic, his inherent determination drove him to overcome his weaknesses. While he didn't have many friends, he had 2 he could call best friends. Back in her bedroom, Patty carefully hung up her work suit. Her simple, neat appearance earned her clients' trust. The clock had passed 11 p.m. Still no word from Richard. Usually, by this time, the whole family would be asleep. But tonight, something felt off. Patty couldn't quite place what it was. She turned off the living room lights and returned to her room upstairs. Lying in bed, she thought about tomorrow's parent observation day at school. Richard had promised to come. She closed her eyes, hoping he'd come home early enough for them to have dinner as a family. However, she didn't yet know that this peaceful daily life was about to be severely shaken. At 1:15 a.m., Patty lay staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Beside her was Richard's empty bed space. Only the low hum of the air conditioner broke the silence. Lately, her husband had been acting strange. He'd step away for phone calls, and his late returns home had increased. She tried to convince herself it was just work, but something nagged at her. Tonight, another late return without contact. Her messages remained unread. Then, she heard a faint sound. Light footsteps descending the stairs. At first, she thought she was imagining it. But someone was definitely moving. Light steps, but unmistakably human. Patty listened intently. The sound of her son's door opening. Footsteps going down the stairs, one step at a time. Could it be sleepwalking? The thought crossed her mind. Michael had never sleepwalked before, but he had been acting strange lately. He'd grown quieter during dinner and occasionally showed vacant expressions. She worried he might be getting bullied at school. Patty got up and left her room. Moonlight filtering into the hallway cast a pale blue light on the space. Family photos on the wall cast eerie shadows in the moonlight. "Michael?" she called softly while peeking into his room. The bed was empty. The comforter was neatly folded. On the pillow remained the impression of the small head that had been there moments ago. The astronomy book on his desk still had its bookmark. Next to it lay a note about his promise with Richard. "Tomorrow is observation day. Promise with Dad." Her heart began to race. Downstairs, the door to the backyard was slightly open. Night air flowed in, gently moving the lace curtains. In the kitchen, dishes from dinner cleanup were neatly arranged on the counter. Everything seemed normal, yet something felt wrong. Patty quickly put on her slippers and headed for the door. Then, she heard a faint sound from the backyard. The sound of digging. A shovel piercing the ground, scooping up soil. An irregular rhythm, but somehow desperate. She gently moved the curtain aside and peered through the glass. In the moonlit backyard, a small shadow was moving. At the corner of the garden, where Richard had been working last week. Where he said he'd plant tulip bulbs. Michael gripped the shovel with both hands, desperately digging. His back, illuminated by moonlight, looked unusually small. His pajama-clad shoulders trembled. Though his hands were hidden in darkness, only the sound of the shovel turning over soil cut through the night stillness. Richard's gardening shovel, something Michael would never normally touch. He gripped it desperately with his small hands. Patty began to tremble. Why was her son digging in the garden in the middle of the night? What was he looking for? Or was he trying to hide something? She quietly opened the door and stepped into the backyard. The damp night air brushed her cheeks. Despite the humid early August night, a chill ran down her spine. Above, the full moon cast an eerie glow. All windows in neighboring houses were dark. The residential area was as silent as another world. Michael's figure became clearer. Her son's hands were shaking. His small fingers gripping the shovel glowed white. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his pajama sleeves were dirty with soil. He looked nothing like the boy who had been eagerly reading at the library earlier that day. Something unnatural, like fabric, peeked out from the soil. Even in the darkness, she could tell it was unfamiliar material. "Michael, what are you doing?" Patty's voice trembled beyond her control. Her son turned slowly. His face in the moonlight showed traces of tears. Under his eyes were tired blue shadows. An expression as if he'd been suffering from something for days, even weeks. "Mom." A trembling voice. "Dad." Those words seemed to be swallowed by the darkness. As if desperately trying to suppress something that was about to escape his throat. Michael began digging again, more desperately now. As his small hands parted the soil, something else appeared beneath the fabric. In the moonlit ground, things that shouldn't be seen began to emerge one after another. Patty gasped. A blood-stained work outfit. The navy blue coveralls Richard occasionally wore. but she'd never seen them this dirty. A cracked cell phone. One she recognized. The old model he said he'd replaced last week. Tools like wrenches and pliers. Things usually kept in the garage. They cast sinister shadows in the moonlight. All familiar items, but in this context, they looked like weapons. "Stop!" Patty called out to her son in a trembling voice. But Michael continued digging as if he hadn't heard, his small back showing a determination she'd never seen before. A desperate need to protect something, and simultaneously, a longing to be freed from something. Her vision swayed. Her trembling hand reached for her phone. Her face reflected in the screen glowed pale in the moonlight. Before dialing the police, Patty looked at her son's profile once more. His expression in the moonlight bore a deep sadness unfitting for an 8-year-old. Their peaceful days seemed like a lie now. "It's okay now, Michael," Patty whispered quietly while pressing the numbers with trembling fingers. Just thinking about the burden her son had been carrying made her heart ache. "Mom will protect you properly." The operator's voice echoed on the other end. But to Patty's ears, only the sound of her son digging seemed unnaturally loud. Under the moonlight, the shadows of mother and son stretched long, melting into the night garden. Tomorrow's observation day might never come. At 2 a.m., 2 police cars quietly parked in front of the Reynolds house. The headlights went out, and 4 officers stepped out. Perhaps noticing the sound, lights came on in the second floor of the house across the street. Through lace curtains, someone's shadow moved. "Mrs. Reynolds." The lead female officer quietly addressed Patty. "Sergeant Kelly." Mid-40s, perhaps. Sharp observational eyes shone beneath her warm expression. "Yes." Patty answered in a trembling voice. Michael stood behind his mother, as if hiding. His pajamas were dirty with soil, and his small hands still gripped the shovel. "First, let's take the shovel from your son." Sergeant Kelly gently approached Michael and carefully took the shovel. She sealed it in a bag as evidence. Other officers had already headed to the backyard. Flashlight beams cut through the night darkness. "Is it around here?" Another officer pointed to the dug area. The ground showed traces of Michael's desperate digging. The blood-stained work clothes were clearly visible in the moonlight and flashlight beams. "Let's call forensics." The radio quietly crackled. Lights in neighboring houses began turning on one after another, as residents noticed the midnight disturbance. The usually quiet residential area seemed to be slowly waking up. "Mrs. Reynolds, could you wait inside with your son?" Led by Sergeant Kelly, Patty entered the living room with her son. The earlier silence now seemed like a lie. Patty sat on the sofa, holding her son. "Michael, don't be scared." Her son's body trembled slightly. Something he'd been suppressing for days, no, weeks, seemed about to overflow. Sergeant Kelly quietly began. "Your husband. He said he'd be late, work." Her own voice seemed to echo from far away. "Then, could we talk separately?" Another female officer appeared, looking toward Michael. Detective Castro. Early 30s. Her kind smile was striking. "Michael, would it be okay to talk in a different room from your mother?" Michael looked up at his mother for a moment. Patty nodded slightly. It's okay. Mom will be right here. Led by Detective Castro, Michael went upstairs. His back looked smaller than ever before. Now then, Mrs. Reynolds. Sergeant Kelly sat across from her. Steam rose quietly from the tea. Could you tell us everything from the beginning? The clock showed 3 a.m. The sound of the forensics team arriving could be heard outside. In the backyard, they had begun photographing the unearthed evidence. Flash photography occasionally lit up the windows. I noticed around 1:15 a.m. Patty began speaking in a trembling voice. Footsteps down the stairs. The empty bed. Her son in the backyard. All memories returned like a nightmare. Sergeant Kelly listened intently to the story, occasionally taking notes. Her gaze held something more than just taking a statement. Perhaps maternal intuition. This officer seemed to have already sensed something. From upstairs came faint sounds of her son's voice. Led by Detective Castro's gentle voice, he seemed to be slowly beginning to talk about the events of that night. And your relationship with your husband? At the sudden question, Patty momentarily stumbled over her words. Normal. I mean, he's dedicated to his work. As she spoke, recent uncomfortable feelings resurfaced. Late returns home. Unnatural phone responses. Changes in her son's behavior. Everything was starting to connect now. Actually. Just as she began to speak, the doorbell rang. Sergeant Kelly stood up. Simultaneously, footsteps ran down from upstairs. Dad's home. Michael's voice rang out like a scream. In that moment, all time seemed to stop. Richard stood at the entrance. In his business suit, his usual dashing demeanor. However, his expression showed unfamiliar tension. What's all this? Richard's voice echoed in the quiet living room. At that moment, seeing Michael coming down from upstairs, his expression momentarily froze. Michael. At the sound of Richard's voice, Michael's body stiffened. Detective Castro instinctively pulled Michael close. Sergeant Kelly quietly stood between them and Richard. Mr. Reynolds, you'll need to come with us to the police station. Her voice was calm but carried weight. The blood drained from Richard's face. Yet he still tried to maintain a smile. There must be some mistake. I just got back from work. Could you tell us about Amanda Walker? At Sergeant Kelly's words, Richard's expression momentarily contorted. Upon hearing that name, Michael's body began to shake. Detective Castro gently embraced him. Amanda. Patty's voice trembled. That name was familiar. A young female employee at her husband's company. A new hire in the sales department. Mom. Michael's voice broke the midnight silence. I can't hide it anymore. His voice carried a weight that seemed impossible for an 8-year-old. That day, I came home early from school. Michael's confession slowly began. It happened 3 weeks ago in the afternoon. Michael had returned home an hour earlier than usual. After accompanying an ill classmate to the nurse's office, his teacher had suggested he go home early. Opening the front door, he found unfamiliar women's shoes. Then, his father's voice from upstairs. as he quietly climbed the stairs. "I told you. At this rate, I'll—" A young woman's voice, leaking from his father's study. "Be quiet. My wife and son know nothing. I'll handle it." His father's low voice. The usually kind voice sounded like a different person. Michael peeked through the door gap. His father was gripping a young woman tightly. Tears streamed down her face. On the desk, what looked like an ultrasound photo. "It's already been 3 months. There's no way to keep hiding it. That's why I said, an abortion. No. I have the right to have this child too." At that moment, Michael's phone rang. A message from his mother. The ringtone echoing in the hallway silenced both voices. Michael rushed down the stairs. Footsteps followed behind him. "Michael!" His father, who had chased him to the backyard, grabbed his arm. "Don't tell Mom about this. Understand?" The usual kind smile was gone, replaced by an unfamiliar adult expression. "But, lying is. Do you want to make Mom sad? Do you want to destroy this family?" His father's large hands gripped his trembling shoulders. "Promise me. Don't tell anyone." From that day, Michael's nightmare began. "And after that, she—" Sergeant Kelly gently prompted. "That day, Dad." Michael's voice broke. Detective Castro gently rubbed his back. "Amanda came to the house when Mom was at work." In a trembling voice, Michael continued. While doing homework upstairs, he heard noise from below. A woman's angry voice. His father's low voice. And then, from the stairs, she fell. Michael, who had come down the stairs startled by the sudden noise. There was Amanda, motionless at the bottom of the stairs. And his father, standing there dumbfounded. "It was an accident." His father's trembling voice. "No one will believe me." Blood-stained work clothes. His father rushing to dispose of them. And a shallow hole dug in the backyard. "Michael, help me. This is our secret." An 8-year-old child covering with soil with trembling hands. Sneaking out to the garden every night to check if rain had washed away the soil. And all these memories becoming a burden. I couldn't take it anymore. By the time Michael's confession ended, dawn was breaking. Patty held her son tightly. Such pressure on such a small body. As a mother, regret squeezed her heart for not noticing sooner. Sergeant Kelly's voice echoed gently. "You don't have to hide anything anymore." Outside the window, Richard Reynolds was quietly being handcuffed. In his suit, he looked unusually small, like a different person entirely. As the sun began to rise, police sirens quietly rang out. Curious eyes peered from neighboring windows, as if realizing that yesterday's peaceful daily life would never return. "Hey, Mom," Michael whispered softly after the police car drove away. "We can't go to observation day today, can we?" At those words, tears spilled from Patty's eyes. In the police-surrounded morning garden, the mother held her son tightly once again. The days ahead would certainly not be easy. But they no longer needed to lie. A small son who found the courage to tell the truth, and a mother who accepted it. The new sunrise gently enveloped them both. 3 months had passed. The residential area on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, already showed signs of winter. Patty gazed out the window while organizing old photo albums. In the backyard, newly planted flowers swayed in the cold wind. "Mom, I'm going to the library," Michael called from the entrance. He seemed to have grown a little taller than before. "Be careful," his mother called out as she saw him off. Her son turned back and smiled. That smile seemed to be gradually releasing itself from the pressure of that night. On the weekend, they planned to look at a new house together. Though it would be sad to leave this house full of memories, it was also part of a new beginning. A small step, but a sure one. Mother and son gazed at each other, quietly exchanging smiles. The morning sun gently illuminated their profiles.
My brother is 15-year-old, my sister is 17, I'm 23, female. This is really stupid, and it shouldn't have happened, but it did. Now I just want advice on how to make it better. Also, this is a story my brother told me as I wasn't there. He was in his room playing on his phone, minding his own business. He got up to take out the trash. He came back to lay down. I'm his bed. As he was laying down, he noticed their dog walking out of his room. He ignored it. Later on, his sister, 17, noticed clothes were missing. She went looking for it and found it in my brother's room. The problem was that it was wet and slimy. She immediately told our parents and they thought the worst. My dad, mom, and brother argued about it. Rude things were said. Apparently, mom said, "I knew you were weird, but not this weird." My dad said, "I raised a predator." In the end, my parents asked me to pick him up and let him stay with me for a couple of days. When I picked him up, he didn't say anything and just sat in silence. He spent the entire time in the room he was staying in. He only came out for dinner. He skipped breakfast and lunch. His eyes were always red when he came out, so I assume he was crying. I've never seen him cry. Most of the time when he's upset, he just has a stone face. So what they said must have got to him. Finally, at the end of the week, his parents called me and said they wanted to talk to him, so they came over. Before they came over, I tried to talk to him, but he ignored me. When parents came, they apologized to him. Over the week, they noticed more of sister's clothes in his room until one day, my dad caught the dog with my sister's clothes. My brother just said, "Okay," and went home. I tried to ask my parents if he could stay longer, but they said that wouldn't be necessary. Later on, I got a call asking me, what did he do over my house? Because he's just been in his room all day at their house. Is there anything I can do to help him feel better? Advice would be greatly unappreciated. Edit little update, good news. He can stay with me until Sunday. I had to lie a little to parents to get him to come. I told them he should get out the house because he spends most of his day sitting in one spot with online school. They didn't believe me at first, but I said it would be a chance to get him out his room. They finally agreed. He was about to go to sleep. So I came just in time. I think the plan right now is to just spend time with him this week. I'm broke, so it's gonna be mostly home stuff. I tried to talk to him on the car ride. I asked him if he's okay. He said he's fine, and we had a little conversation about his school. So at least he's talking now. He's in the spare room, so everything is okay right now. The last update I gave was when my brother was allowed to spend the week at my house. That was last Sunday. We spend the first day pun day at my house just talking. He spends most of the time in the room. At first, he wasn't responding back. It was going nowhere quickly. So I ended the conversation by telling him our parents were wrong and that he is not weird. I didn't say it exactly like this, but I hope you get the point. He just had a stone face and we stopped talking. Tuesday, he still didn't really come out of the room. I offered to go to McDonald's and he came out the room to eat at the table. We just talked about random different things. He wasn't really interested in the conversation until we started talking about my Xbox. We eventually started talking about Madden. He started talking about how good he is at the game. We finished eating run, he went back to his room. Wednesdays, I bought Madden. I don't play sports game. I play games like Cuphead or cartoon animated games. I asked if he wanted to play and he agreed. I know this is serious, but Madden absolutely sucks. The game started cheating as soon as we started. The first thing my player did was fumble the ball. He was killing me at it. He actually laughed a couple of times and he seemed to be enjoying himself. We spent a good portion of the day just playing. Thursday was pretty much the same as Wednesdays, but he was talking more. I was gonna go to the movies, but COVID is still a thing. We eventually just settled to watching Netflix. He spent half the day in his room, but he is coming out more. On Friday, I decided to try to talk to him about the situation again. I pretty much told him I would talk to our parents to get them to understand why he was hurt by it. I also took the advice of seeing if he wanted to talk to a professional. He asked me not to ask them about it. He said it was just better if nobody brought it up again. I was a little shocked, but there's not much I could do. We then decided to go to a walking trail. At first he didn't want to go, but I convinced him to come. We just spent more time talking. This also made me realize that I should talk to my siblings more often. He seemed happier. That Saturday or yesterday was pretty much us just talking again. We decided instead of Madden to just play random games I had. I don't have a lot, but I think he had a good time. When it was dinner time, he got kinda quiet again. I asked him what was wrong. He said he wasn't ready to go back home yet. I didn't know what to say. I asked him if he wanted me to talk to our parents to see what we could do. He just said no again. I pretty much told him he could come to my house anytime he wanted to. That leads us to today. He is back at his house. I was going to talk to our parents, but I assumed he has a reason for not wanting me to talk to them. I know you guys said something about getting him a therapist, but he said no to the idea. I did call my sister to see how she's doing. She said she tried to apologize to brother, but he ignored her. But I don't know what happening with that, but one thing at a time. And that's pretty much how the week went. Overall, he seemed much happier than he was last week. I texted him and he wants to come back over sometime next week. This part has nothing to do with my brother, but it's about me. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I'm only 23, still trying to get my life together. I'm a firefighter, so I'm just glad that we get a lot of vacation time, or else I would have had to work. I know people are thinking if you're a firefighter, you should know what to do, and why did you ask what the signs of depression are? I was never a trainer on how to deal with somebody actively showing signs of depression. I was trained to help somebody who is in the process of trying to commit suicide, and that training wasn't that good. It was basically try to talk them down and do whatever you can to get them to a hospital. I've yet to use this training. This is why I was panicking when everything was happening. People were telling me he could commit suicide. I know I should have kept a cool head, but it just felt different because it was family. They tell you not to panic, but I'm only human. I've been a firefighter for about 2 years now. Anyway, something else I wanted to say. I'm gonna try to be there for both my brother and sister, but I made a mistake too. Somebody brought up the point of when I found out what happened, what was my reaction? I am ashamed to admit it, but I didn't have one. I thought he was gonna get over it and everything would be all right. I only started caring when I realized that he wasn't acting like his normal self, that when I realized the impact of what they said and how fucked up this all really is. So to the person who brought up this point, thank you. This showed me that no matter how great my actions are looking in front of random strangers, the truth is that I had a similar mindset as my parents. I don't think he's weird, but I guess my time spent around them made me desensitized to the things they say. I'm gonna work to change that because it's not right. So to everybody, thank you for the advice you've given. I see the mistake I've made and I'm 100 behind changing myself and being behind my brother. Story 2. Father believes stepdaughter's accusation his son abused her. Turns out she lied, but not before ruining his son's life. My son has been in college since last fall. Last November, my 16-year-old stepdaughter brought up allegations that my son had abused her repeatedly for several years. I confronted my son and he categorically denied it. But I knew that even though he was my son, I could not defend him for such an awful act. My wife and I reported him to the authorities. My son was arrested in December and held in prison for several weeks, because I refused to provide him bail money. He was eventually expelled from his Ivy League college. In the middle of January, my stepdaughter broke down and admitted she lied about everything. She had actually been having sex with her boyfriend and was scared the news would reach us. The charges were dismissed and my son was released immediately, but the damage was done. His first girlfriend from college ended things with him. The news spread about the allegations, and all his childhood friends have decided to just stay away from him, even though I called each and every one of them personally. I have called the school and explained the situation, and even though they sympathize, they said it needed to reapply for the next school year and go through the admissions process again. My son is understandably furious at us. He has moved back home and refuses to talk to me at all. Both my wife and I have apologized to him repeatedly. We have banned my stepdaughter from our home permanently, and she has been sent to live with her father in another state. My wife and I also agreed to completely disinherit her from our wills. It has been a very painful situation. All of us started therapy. The realization of how badly I ruined my son's life hit me when I picked up his first prescription of antidepressants today. I bawled my eyes out in my car. He is the pride and joy of my life. He is outgoing, funny, intelligent, and the kindest person I know. But when I handed him his medication, I could not even recognize him. He locks himself in his room, does not eat properly, and has lost several pounds so far. Whenever I try talking to him, I just see the hate he has for me in his eyes. I don't know if I can ever get him to love me again. I know he is on Reddit very often. T, if you are reading, I want to tell you again how sorry your stepmom and I are. I promise I will get you into college again. I know I can't get you back the year you lost, but I will do everything in my power to make this right. Everything I have has always been for you. I hope you will give me a chance to fix this. I love you so much, it hurts. I failed as a father and I hope one day you will forgive me. My reaction. I hope one day soon the girls have to serve the same time that the wrongfully accused would have had to serve, instead of it just being dropped and she goes on with her life after ruining his.
My wife and I have been married since 2001 and together since 1999. She is the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, loyal person I know, and I have always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She has always shot them down. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer, stage 1, and had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer. It was diagnosed early, dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery, and all seemed well. There were some to be expected emotional instances on her part, and although I am not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After her recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest and took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. We also have a trip to the UK and Spain, Portugal later this year. I am fine with these things, building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off our list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming, and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week, she came home from work and told me she wanted a hall pass. A one-time opportunity for her to have sex with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there is this guy at her work that she has always had some attraction to. He is leaving the company and she will never see him again. So this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no, of course, but that she would be mad, disappointed at me for an indeterminate amount of time, and that it would be confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting your wife of 20 years to have sex with someone else is insecure, then I guess I am insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I do not appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage life. I got up in the morning. She basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders, and that to help she was taking the decision away from me. She booked a hotel near where her coworkers are having a part send-off for this guy, and she would spend the night there with him and hoped that I would be here when she got back, that she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She will not tell me who he is or anything about him because she knows me too well, and that I will dwell and obsess over him, and that would make it too real for me, which is pretty accurate. Her POV is that the less I know, the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. I think she knows. I want to know, ask anything, or she simply will not tell me. Part of me thinks, at least she has been honest with me, and she has been through a lot since finding out she had cancer. So maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her mental state outlook on life. Part of me wants to put my foot down and say, this is not going to happen, and deal with those consequences when they happen. Her BFF called me callous for even suggesting that I wouldn't let it happen because I have no idea what she went through. I find it hard to believe that she is okay with the possibility of throwing away 20 years of marriage over some guy that she has had no relationship with outside of work, and that I should just call her bluff. Maybe she thinks similarly that I won't throw away the marriage because of one encounter. I just don't know what to do. I empathize with her, and then an instant later I am angry with her. Part of me wants to know who this guy is. What does he look like? What has he got that is so enthralling for her? Is he just a safe option? Is he married? Does his wife know? Would I be a callous asshole for saying no? What can I do besides walking away? Told her, wife battled cancer, won, but now wants to have one night with a soon-to-be former coworker, and I have no say in the matter. Accept it or destroy 20 years of a great marriage. Top comment 1. Kinda think this is the way your marriage will be from now on. With her epiphany, she wants to relive her life, and she is going to do it regardless of your feelings. I think she is being rather selfish and probably only threatens this because she thinks you are beaten down and will simply put up with it. Perhaps not the best time for trips and frills. She wants the single life. Let her see what that means. Hope replies to some comments. She thinks because she will never see this guy again, and that I have never met him supposedly, that it won't really affect me or our marriage in the long term. I am left with accepting it and never viewing her the same way again or going through a divorce at 54. Not really great options on either front. I don't know where her head is, and the bout with cancer is affecting her in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. I don't think she believes I will leave. Update. I received a ton of advice that I couldn't possibly respond to. I do appreciate the people who took time to offer advice in the comments or via PM. It has been an exhausting couple of days. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately, that did not happen. I said, I am a hard no, and I am not sure how I will feel about you if you go ahead with it. I was met once again with this is for me. It will be one time. What can I say to help you deal with it? You'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless of the situation remarks leading up to Saturday. She left Saturday, ostensibly to meet her coworkers, but in reality, the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going to go through with this. After her response, "I am not answering any more questions tonight. I will see you tomorrow," I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the bar where the get-together was happening. Well, not the bar, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind the leading up to this event, that I need to know who this guy was, maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I do not. It was driving me crazy, not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. After what seemed like eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got in a cab. Soon other people started filing out, and a whole group came out, and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had my guy. I didn't see my wife and had a brief thought that maybe she called it all off. I unblocked her, and there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. Dude was standing outside for a few minutes, and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand, and started walking away together. Of all the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat, and bald, all the things I cannot compete with. Ultimately, I felt like a pervert for watching from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel and then turned around. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find other accommodations as quickly as possible. I visited another friend who is a lawyer, and he gave me some sage advice and a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife had been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple, but felt nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me, and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home, but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9, and as per my buddy's advice, I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room asking what was going on. Could we talk? I thought we talked about this. I just answered with, "I am not interested in discussing this tonight," and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door, she left me alone. I feel kind of like a child for not talking with her and shutting the door on her, but I just couldn't look at her. Monday, I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, "You have been doing all the talking for the both of us for the last week. Why don't you continue and left for work? I have an appointment with the attorneys my friend recommended for this week." She went ahead with it. I am actually more disgusted by who she chose than the sex itself, if that makes any sense. I asked her to find somewhere else to live.
Help. On the day before my grandchild's funeral, a faint voice came from somewhere. Huh? What? As I listened closely, it seemed to be coming from inside the coffin. Trembling with fear, I opened the lid of the coffin, and there was my 3-year-old granddaughter, who was supposed to have died from illness, tied up with chains. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. "Grandma, you know." As unbelievable facts were told from my granddaughter's mouth, I was at a loss for words. Unforgivable. How could this happen? The anger welling up inside me exceeded my limits of patience. I lost my husband in an accident when I was 38. As a widow, I devoted all my energy to raising my son, Timothy, who was 13 at the time. When Timothy was 34, he married a woman named Sarah. "You can finally relax now," my friends all said, acknowledging my years of hard work. Timothy and Sarah lived about a 30-minute drive from my house, maintaining a comfortable distance. Soon after their marriage, we found out she was pregnant, and I was eagerly awaiting the birth of my first grandchild. When Sarah was in her 3rd trimester, I visited their house to share some vegetables. We weren't sure about the baby's gender for a while, but it turns out it's a girl, Timothy said. "Oh, how exciting!" I replied. "Yes, but I really wanted a boy," he sighed. The couple seemed visibly disappointed that the baby wasn't their desired gender. "With a girl, you'll have the joy of choosing cute outfits," I said, trying to cheer them up. Of course, I thought the gender didn't matter as long as the baby was born healthy, but I was trying to boost their spirits. However, they were so shocked they didn't respond at all. Still, I thought once they saw their adorable newborn, they'd forget they ever felt that way. A few months later, my granddaughter was born safely. They named her Olivia, and she was the sweetest little girl. I truly understood the saying, "too precious for words." I visited my son and daughter-in-law whenever I could to see my granddaughter. However, as I observed the two of them, something bothered me. Even when Olivia cried for a long time, they hardly paid attention to her. "Oh my, what's wrong?" I'd say, reaching out to pick her up, but Sarah would glare at me. "Mother-in-law, don't do that, she'll get used to being held." But isn't it pitiful to leave her crying like this? I was trying to help Sarah feel a bit more relaxed, but it seemed that wasn't the right thing to do. Timothy chimed in with a bitter expression, "She's just fussy because she's sleepy. It's trendy now to teach them to sleep on their own from an early age." They both looked annoyed that I had voiced my opinion. "I suppose child-rearing has changed a lot since my day," I said, deciding to step back and observe for a while. However, as Olivia grew, my doubts about my son and daughter-in-law's parenting only increased. When I visited their house, Olivia was always wearing ill-fitting clothes, and she would eagerly devour the snacks I brought as if she were starving. Are they really taking proper care of her? Worried, I tried to talk to my son about it, hoping to offer some help. "Stop nagging. Don't interfere with how we raise our child," Timothy shouted, refusing to listen. What's more, every time I said something, he started treating Olivia roughly. Witnessing such behavior, I found myself unable to speak up and decided to keep quiet. A little while later, around Olivia's 3rd birthday, Sarah became pregnant with their 2nd child. While I was babysitting Olivia during their prenatal checkup, they returned home overjoyed. They had found out their next child would be a boy. "Yes. I'm so excited," Timothy exclaimed. "That's wonderful news. Olivia, you're going to have a little brother," I said. "Yes. I can't wait to meet my brother," Olivia cheered. Seeing Timothy and Sarah's happiness and Olivia's joy, I felt relieved. Maybe they're slowly becoming a real family, I thought. However, my relief was short-lived. Around this time, Olivia started falling ill frequently. Several times, I'd receive a message from Timothy the day before a planned visit saying, "Tomorrow won't work." When I asked why, he'd say Olivia wasn't feeling well. Even when I offered to visit and check on her, they refused. After persistent pleading, they finally allowed me to come over, and I rushed to their house. When I finally saw Olivia after a long time, she looked emaciated. "Doesn't she need to be hospitalized? If she's at home, it can't be that serious, right?" I asked. Timothy hung his head, covering his face with his hands. "We thought it would be better for her to spend her remaining time at home," he said, his voice trembling. Hearing my son speak like this, I knew something was terribly wrong. "What's her diagnosis? It must be quite serious, right?" I was filled with disbelief and a desire to take Olivia's place if I could. After that, I visited Olivia as often as time allowed, but my son and daughter-in-law gradually prevented me from seeing her, saying it might tire her out. This went on for about a month, and then it happened suddenly. "Olivia has passed away," Timothy informed me, and my world went dark. She was only 3 years old. She had so many joyful experiences ahead of her. Thinking about how I couldn't do anything for her, I broke down in tears. I was also worried about Sarah, who was in her final month of pregnancy, and my heart ached imagining how devastated she must be. When I went to my son's house, funeral preparations were underway, and Olivia was already in her coffin. As I approached the coffin, wanting to see Olivia's face, Timothy, who had just entered the room, stopped me. "No, don't open it," he said. "She went through tough treatments, so her body is in bad shape. I don't want you to see her like that." "That bad?" I imagined a truly horrific end, unable to even see Olivia's face. Though part of me couldn't accept it, I tried to tell myself that Olivia would always be in my heart. Changing the subject, I asked my son if there was anything I could help with, but he said, "We're fine for now," so I decided to go home for the time being. The next day, I visited their house again. It was the day of the funeral, but strangely, no one else had arrived yet besides me. "Who else is coming?" I asked. "No one. We want to send her off quietly, just as family," Timothy replied. "Sarah's parents are working overseas. We contacted them, but they said they couldn't make it in time for the funeral, though they'd definitely come later." I understood it was sudden, and it might be difficult for them to return at such short notice. "We'll give Olivia a proper send-off, even if it's just us," I thought. I was standing in front of the coffin, reminiscing about the time I spent with Olivia, when Timothy's phone rang, and he stepped outside to take the call. At that moment, I heard a faint "help me" coming from somewhere. Listening closely, it seemed to be coming from inside the coffin. Trembling, I opened the lid, and to my shock, there was Olivia, who was supposed to be dead, bound in chains and pleading for help. "Olivia? What on earth is going on?" I was confused by this sudden turn of events, but I knew without a doubt that my son and daughter-in-law were involved. I quickly helped Olivia out and hid her in the closet, telling her, "Wait here for just a bit, okay? Sarah's gone into labor." Timothy came running back, his voice full of excitement. "I'm taking Sarah to the hospital now, so you should go home," he said, gathering his wife's belongings and tidying himself up. "What about Olivia's funeral?" I asked. "That's not important right now. The boy who's about to be born is what matters." He said this as if it were the most natural thing in the world, without even a change in his expression. "But it's sad to leave Olivia alone." "I'll stay here and keep watch," I suggested, feeling it would be more convenient to remain in the house. "Just because we're not here doesn't mean you can look inside the coffin." "It would make Olivia sad," Timothy warned, looking thoughtful for a moment before hurrying out of the room. "Even if you tell me not to look, it's already too late," I thought to myself. After confirming that Timothy and Sarah had left, I rushed to the closet where Olivia was waiting. "Olivia, it's all right now," I said, hugging her tightly. "I'm so glad you're alive." After that, I heard an unbelievable story from her. As I had suspected, Timothy and Sarah were indeed the culprits. I will never forgive them. Unable to contain my anger, I decided to punish them and began preparing to corner the two of them. The next day, I received a call from my son. "A healthy baby boy was born," he announced in an elated voice. "Congratulations. We must celebrate." "I'll come to the hospital later," I replied. About 3 hours after the call, I visited Sarah's hospital room. "Look, Mom. It's our long-awaited son. Isn't he cute?" Timothy said excitedly as soon as I entered the room, holding up his newborn son. He and Sarah exchanged glances, smiling happily at each other. "You won't be smiling for long," I thought to myself. When I asked them about Olivia's funeral, their expressions changed instantly. "Oh, we're busy with the new baby, so we decided to just cremate her without a funeral. We'll let you know when it's all done," Timothy answered dismissively, as if it were a bothersome task. Now, it's time for their punishment to begin. I gave a signal behind my back, and Olivia ran towards the newborn baby. "Wow! He's so cute. This is my little brother, right?" Seeing this, my son and his wife were visibly shocked, looking back and forth between Olivia and me. "Oh my! Olivia!" I pretended to be surprised by her appearance. "You opened the coffin. Didn't I tell you not to?" Timothy confronted me, his tone harsh. I glared back at him. "How could you chain her up and lock her in a coffin? That's despicable." "Huh? That's none of your business, is it?" I explained how I discovered Olivia. When I opened the coffin lid, Olivia's mouth was covered with cloth, but it had slipped a bit, allowing her to call for help. Just imagine how scared Olivia must have been, unable to move in that dark box. As I started to say this, my son suddenly hugged Olivia tightly. "You came back to life. That's great, isn't it, Sarah?" "Yes, it really is." They were putting on an exaggerated act, thinking they could fool me. "Olivia, can you tell me why you were in that box?" I asked my granddaughter with a gentle smile. Well, Daddy and Mommy wrapped me up tight. Then they said a devil was coming, so I had to wait there, Olivia explained, stumbling over her words but trying her best. She's saying this, but can you explain what it means? I asked. Timothy had lost his earlier bravado and became less talkative. Not wanting Olivia to see me corner her parents, I beckoned her and said, I need to have an important talk with your parents now. Can you wait in the hallway with my friend? Okay, I understand, she replied. I had asked a friend to come along and help me with this situation. After confirming that Olivia had left the room, I slowly turned to face Timothy and Sarah. Now, I need you to explain everything clearly, I said. Unable to withstand my piercing gaze, they quickly averted their eyes. You can't believe what a child says. That's right. She's only 3 years old. Her memory can't be trusted. They desperately tried to deny their actions, refusing to admit what they had done. I took out a notebook from my bag and held it out to them. But what's written here is true, isn't it? Timothy's voice cracked as he asked, How did you? This notebook contained details of their plan. Shall I read it aloud? The funeral is fake, meant to deceive Mom. Further down, it was written that if Olivia died, they expected to receive financial aid for funeral expenses. I had found this while searching their room after they had rushed to the hospital when Sarah went into labor. It's the worst to snoop around someone else's house. But that's just notes I took about an interesting mystery drama I saw on TV the other day, my son declared boldly, snatching the notebook from me. He looked triumphant, but of course, this wasn't the end. Then what about this? I said, pulling out another document from my bag and thrusting it at Timothy. What's this all about? He demanded. It was Olivia's medical report. When I rescued Olivia and hugged her, she winced in pain, saying, It hurts. When I lifted her clothes to check, I saw several bruises on her body. Suspecting my son and daughter-in-law of mistreating her, I immediately took her to the hospital. The doctor told me, this child has been regularly subjected to physical abuse, and her nutritional state is poor. Is she not being fed properly? He then provided me with this medical report. So that's why Olivia devoured the food so eagerly when I brought some to your house before, I said. They kept their heads down, not answering. What's going on? Why are you doing this? I pressed further. At first, my son wouldn't even meet my eyes, but then he sat down in a chair, manspreading. We wanted a boy, but she was born a girl. That's the problem, he blurted out. Children are precious gifts, I said. No way. Girls are useless, aren't they? Timothy started talking non-stop, as if he had given up trying to hide anything. He explained that once they found out their second child was a boy, they decided they no longer needed Olivia. However, they thought it would be suspicious if she suddenly disappeared, so they came up with the plan to pretend she was sick and eventually claim she had died. Well, we haven't been feeding her properly lately, so we thought she'd eventually just weaken and die on her own. My son said this with a smirk, casually admitting to such a terrible thing without any hesitation. There was one thing I couldn't understand. Even though you say that, you didn't actually kill her. Isn't that because deep down, as parents, you truly love Olivia? I asked. Timothy and Sarah looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Love? There's no such thing. If she died, we'd lose the child support payments and our income would decrease, right? That's right. The only one we want to love is this son, Sarah said, lovingly stroking the baby's head she was holding. At that moment, I realized my anger had reached its peak. If that's the case, there was no need to chain her up and put her in a coffin. I shouted, suppressing the urge to slap them both. However, my anger didn't seem to affect them at all. But that wouldn't create the right atmosphere, you know. Besides, kids can do unexpected things, so we thought it would be safer to keep her restrained and locked in the coffin, my son said matter-of-factly. My body trembled with rage at his nonchalant attitude. Also, you always come to our house and dote on Olivia, so we were worried she might tell you what we've been doing to her someday, Timothy continued. So that's why you pretended Olivia was dead. You thought I wouldn't come around anymore? I asked. Bingo. Timothy said with a grin. Now that we have our boy, you can have Olivia if you want her, he added. That's right. We don't need her anymore, so do whatever you like with her, Sarah chimed in. They were treating Olivia like an object, and worse, they seemed to be enjoying it. Before I knew it, I had grabbed my son by the collar. Want to fight? I won't go easy on you just because you're my mother, Timothy said provocatively. But I realized that if I gave in to this, I'd be no better than them. So I let go of my son and glared at them both. I'll raise Olivia and your newborn son myself, I declared. What? Are you crazy? We're not giving up our son. No way. They shouted angrily. It was time to deliver the final blow of my punishment. I've already reported this incident to the police and Child Protective Services. You should be prepared for how the authorities will judge parents who abuse their children, I said. As soon as I said this, Sarah grabbed Timothy's arm and kept shaking it, pleading, "What are we going to do?" over and over. But Timothy just stood there, dumbfounded, unable to answer. I think the police might be arriving here soon, I added. Wait a minute. What if they really take our son away? What should we do? Timothy asked. That's not my problem. You brought this on yourselves, I replied coldly. We'll take good care of Olivia from now on, so please tell them your report was a mistake, they begged, bowing their heads to me. As if I could believe that. I said, pushing them away. They muttered, "What should we do?" and slumped down where they stood. After that, Timothy and Sarah were arrested, and the children were temporarily placed in protective custody. The incident was widely reported in the news and weekly magazines, with my son and daughter-in-law's names and faces exposed. Even after they're released from prison, they'll likely live the rest of their lives being pointed at and whispered about. As for me, I ended up taking in and raising both grandchildren. With another precious little one added to my life, I can't stop smiling. My friends tell me, you look so youthful these days. Perhaps it's because I have a new purpose in life. I'm not entirely displeased with the compliment. Olivia is a great help around the house, and I'm truly grateful for her. I'm determined to stay healthy and energetic so I can watch my grandchildren grow up. That's what I'm focusing on now. My name is Sarah Thompson, and I'm 38 years old. I live in a small town on the outskirts of Boston with my husband Michael and our 10-year-old daughter Emily. During the week, I teach 4th grade at the local elementary school, and on weekends, I cherish time with my family. I still vividly remember 15 years ago when I was in college. A young man sat next to me in the library while I was studying. His name was Michael. We talked about literature and hit it off right away. After that, we went on many dates and got married after graduation. Michael got a job at a local construction company, and I fulfilled my dream of becoming a teacher. When Emily was born, it felt like our happiness had reached its peak. Lately, Michael's been coming home late more often, and I'm starting to worry. But he just says, "I'm busy with work." Emily seems lonely, not seeing her father as much. Still, we're a happy family. On weekends, we have picnics in the park or watch movies together. But recently, I've started to feel that something's not quite right. Who could have imagined that an unexpected shadow was creeping into these peaceful days? On Friday afternoon, I was able to leave school earlier than usual. As I walked home, my steps felt lighter at the thought of having dinner together as a family, something we hadn't done in a while. When I arrived at the front door and unlocked it, an unnatural silence enveloped me. Usually, I'd hear the TV or Emily's laughter. "Michael? Emily?" I called out as I headed to the living room. What I saw there took my breath away. Michael and Emily were lying on the floor. Michael! Emily! I screamed as I rushed to them. Michael was breathing with difficulty, and Emily seemed to be having a seizure. I was on the verge of panic but took a deep breath and told myself to stay calm. I immediately called 911 and requested an ambulance. Following the operator's instructions, I checked on them. Neither was conscious, but they were barely breathing. It's okay, Emily. Daddy's okay too. Mommy's here. I held my daughter's hand and whispered with a shaky voice. A few minutes later, I heard sirens. The paramedics arrived and quickly loaded them onto stretchers. I was allowed to ride in the ambulance. When we arrived at the hospital, Michael and Emily were immediately taken to the treatment room. I waited in the waiting room, feeling overwhelmed by anxiety and fear. Why did this happen to them? If only I had come home earlier. Such thoughts raced through my mind. After about an hour, a doctor finally appeared. Mrs. Thompson. Yes, that's me. How are they? I stood up, desperately trying to read the doctor's expression. They're both out of immediate danger. However, the doctor paused for a moment and looked straight into my eyes. They're showing symptoms of acute poisoning. Did they eat or drink anything unusual? Poisoning? No, that's impossible. I was confused and at a loss for words. When I said goodbye to them this morning, everything seemed fine. Mrs. Thompson, we've also contacted the police. Sometimes, symptoms like these. As the doctor's words trailed off, a terrible thought crossed my mind. Could someone have intentionally? No, that's impossible. I couldn't help but cry out. The doctor looked at me sympathetically and said quietly, "Please talk to the police when they arrive. We'll do our best to treat them." With that, the doctor left. I collapsed into a chair and covered my face with my hands. I couldn't understand what was happening. I desperately tried to recall the events of the morning. Michael left for work early, I saw Emily off to school, and then I went to work. It should have been a normal morning. But why were they showing symptoms of poisoning? And the police? My heart felt like it was being crushed by anxiety and fear. But I had to be strong for Michael and Emily. I took a deep breath and tried to regain my composure bit by bit. Tomorrow will surely be tough. But for the sake of my family, I'll overcome anything. After spending the night at the hospital, I was finally able to return home as the sun was rising. Michael and Emily's conditions were stable, but they still hadn't regained consciousness. As I opened the front door with my exhausted body, 2 police officers were standing there. "Are you Mrs. Sarah Thompson?" the tall male officer asked. "Yes, I am," I answered, confused. "We'd like to ask you a few questions about yesterday's incident," the female officer said. I invited them into the house. As we sat in the living room, the male officer began to speak. "Could you tell us in detail about yesterday's events?" I explained as accurately as possible everything from yesterday morning until I returned home. The officers listened intently, occasionally taking notes. "Mrs. Thompson, have you had any disputes with your husband or daughter?" the female officer suddenly asked. "Huh? No, nothing like that," I answered, surprised. "You see, the symptoms of your husband and daughter suggest the possibility of intentional poisoning," the male officer said quietly. At those words, my heart began to race. "Are you suspecting me?" The officers looked at each other, and the male officer carefully chose his words. "At this point, we can't rule out any possibilities. We ask for your cooperation." After that, they began to search the house. I watched their movements in a daze. Suddenly, the female officer in the kitchen called out, "There's a suspicious container here." What she held in her hand was a small bottle I didn't recognize. The label read, "Pesticide." "This. I don't know about this. It's not mine," I desperately pleaded. The officers seized the bottle as evidence and took my fingerprints. "We'll need you to wait at the station until we get the results of the comparison." Feeling dejected, I was taken to the police station. As I spent a long time in the interrogation room, various thoughts crossed my mind. Why is this happening? There's no way I would hurt my family. But that bottle. And Michael's recent behavior. The interrogator came in and sat down with a stern expression. "Mrs. Thompson, your fingerprints were found on the bottle." At those words, I felt my world crumbling. "That's impossible. I didn't touch it." "Then why were your fingerprints on it?" The interrogator's eyes pierced through me. "I don't know. I really don't know," I answered, fighting back tears. The questioning continued, but all I could do was plead my innocence. Just as fatigue and confusion were making my head fuzzy, the interrogator left the room for a moment. Alone in the room, I thought deeply. The only way out of this situation is to uncover the truth myself. But how? At that moment, a possibility crossed my mind. Could it be? Just as I had that thought, the interrogator came back into the room. "Mrs. Thompson, your bail has been granted. However, as the investigation is ongoing, please don't leave town for the time being." I left the station with mixed feelings. I must take action to uncover the truth and protect my family. As I left the police station, I was organizing my next steps in my head. To reveal the truth, I had to find evidence with my own hands. Just as I made that decision, my cell phone rang. Looking at the screen, I saw it was from my sister, Lisa. "Sarah. I heard what happened. I'm on my way there now." Lisa's voice was filled with worry. Our relationship as sisters was complicated, and we hadn't been in touch much for the past few years. Memories of past conflicts resurfaced. 10 years ago, when our parents' company was on the brink of bankruptcy, Lisa embezzled company funds for her own future. I tried to stop her, but Lisa wouldn't listen. In the end, the company went bankrupt, and our parents lost everything. Since then, our relationship had remained strained. Lisa, you don't need to come. I can handle this on my own. No, Sarah. You can't do this alone. There must be something I can do. Lisa's strong tone made me lose the will to argue. All right. But I'm going to the hospital first. At the hospital, the doctor informed me that there was no significant change in Michael and Emily's conditions. As I looked at their faces in the hospital room, I couldn't stop my tears. I vowed in my heart to prove my innocence and get my family back. As I left the hospital, Lisa was waiting. Sarah, is what the police are saying true? I took a deep breath and answered. No. I would never hurt my family. Lisa nodded silently. I understand. Let's think about what we can do together. We went into a nearby cafe and started to sort out the situation. First, we needed to find out where the pesticide bottle came from. Sarah, try to remember all your actions. Is there anything you might have overlooked? Lisa asked with a serious look. I desperately traced my memories. Then, I suddenly realized. Come to think of it, I went to the home improvement store last Saturday. But I didn't buy any pesticides. Lisa's eyes lit up. That's it. Maybe someone impersonated you to make the purchase. I found hope in that possibility. We immediately headed to the home improvement store. We explained the situation to the store manager and negotiated to see the surveillance camera footage. The store manager, who was initially reluctant, agreed to cooperate after seeing our desperate situation. As we checked the security camera footage, a surprising scene caught our eyes. The screen showed a woman who indeed looked very similar to me. But looking closely, the details were different. The person stopped in front of the pesticide shelf and picked up a bottle. This is it. I couldn't help but exclaim. But this person isn't me. Lisa was also staring intently at the screen. Wait, this person. We looked at each other. The person looked exactly like our cousin Jenny. Could it be Jenny? I looked at Lisa in disbelief. But why would Jenny? Lisa also looked confused. We rushed to the police station and presented this new evidence. The police started a reinvestigation and began to confirm Jenny's identity and whereabouts. A few days later, we received a call from the police. They said Jenny had been arrested. The interrogation revealed shocking facts. Jenny had apparently been jealous of my life for years. A happy family, a stable job, and above all, the trust of our parents. Jenny had plotted to take all of that away. Why would Jenny go that far? I listened to the police officer's explanation while crying. However, mysteries still remain. How did Jenny enter the house and mix in the pesticide? And why were only Michael and Emily affected? The path to the truth is not over yet. But with this glimmer of hope, strength welled up in my heart. I must continue to fight to protect my family and reveal the truth. Lisa put her hand on my shoulder. Sarah, let's get through this together. I won't leave you alone again. My sister's words filled me with warmth. It's time to overcome our past conflicts and join forces as sisters. The journey to uncover the truth continues. But I'm not alone anymore. With the bond of family and a new bond with my sister, I continue to move forward. As the police investigation progressed, Lisa and I continued to pursue the truth on our own. Even after Jenny's arrest, there were still many points that didn't make sense. One day, I noticed something odd about Lisa's behavior. Her voice trembled when we talked on the phone, and she avoided eye contact. It was clear she was hiding something. "Lisa, you know something, don't you?" I looked at my sister with a serious gaze. After a long silence, Lisa finally spoke. "Sarah, I'm so sorry." And then, a shocking truth was revealed. Jenny's plan was actually devised by Lisa. But why? I asked in disbelief. Lisa began to explain through tears. She had been jealous of my life for years. The trust from our parents, a stable job, a happy family. Lisa had plotted to take it all away. But in the very end, I lost my courage. So I asked Jenny to do it. I was at a loss for words. My heart, which had believed in the bond between sisters, was shattered into pieces. But an even more shocking fact awaited. Michael's affair and his conspiracy in this plan were revealed. Lisa continued, "Michael was just an affair partner at first. But he also wanted to hurt you." In my mind, all the recent events started to connect rapidly. Michael's late returns, his cold attitude lately. Everything started to make sense. "Emily?" I asked with a trembling voice. "We didn't intend to involve Emily." "But Michael." Lisa's voice trailed off. My body shook with anger and sadness. But now is not the time to be swept away by emotions. I must act calmly, for Emily's sake and for my own. "Lisa, you're going to tell the police everything, right?" I said quietly but firmly. Lisa nodded. "Yes, I'll tell them everything. And I'll accept my punishment." We headed to the police station. Lisa's testimony revealed the full extent of the incident. Michael and Jenny were rearrested and subjected to questioning. However, this wasn't the end of everything. I still had something I needed to do. I returned to the hospital and sat beside Emily, who had regained consciousness. "Emily, Mommy's here. Everything's going to be all right now." While holding my daughter's small hand, I made a firm decision. We would overcome this experience and start a new life. A few weeks later, the trial began. I stood on the witness stand and told the whole truth. Lisa, Michael, Jenny. Their actions were unforgivable, but I didn't harbor any feelings of revenge. Instead, I said to the judge, "Please give them appropriate punishment. However, Emily and I will begin a new life. We want to live looking forward, without being trapped by the past." After the trial, Emily and I decided to start a new life in a different town. Lisa is serving her time in prison. Sometimes, I receive letters from her. "Sarah, I'm truly sorry. I finally understand your strength and kindness. I smiled as I read that letter. I believe people can change. Emily is regaining her strength day by day. Every time I see her smile, I make a vow. No matter what difficulties may await us, we can overcome them. As we ate dinner together in our new home, just Emily and me, I thought to myself, this is our new beginning. And this beginning is full of hope. A year has passed since the trial, and Emily and I have gotten used to our new life. We're living in a quiet suburban house, helping each other through each day. One day, I received a request from Lisa for a visit. I was hesitant, but with Emily's encouragement, I decided to go to the prison. "Sarah, thank you for coming to see me," Lisa said with tears in her eyes. Emily said she wanted to see her aunt, I answered quietly. Lisa took a deep breath and began to speak. "For the past year, I've been reflecting every day. When I think about the pain I caused you and Emily, my heart feels like it's going to break." I listened silently. Lisa continued, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. But after I'm released, I want to make amends to you both." Those words spread warmth in my heart. "Lisa, we're sisters. It might take time, but I believe we can walk together again." A look of relief appeared on Lisa's face. "Sarah, thank you." After the visit, on my way home, I thought to myself, family bonds can sometimes be hurt and almost broken. But the power to repair them also lies within the family. A few months later, I received a letter from Michael. "Sarah, Emily, I'm truly sorry. I deeply realize my own foolishness and weakness. Emily, Daddy can't come back, but I'll always love you." Emily cried as she read the letter. I hugged my daughter and said, "Emily, Daddy made mistakes, but his love for you is real. Let's keep moving forward together." Emily nodded through her tears. At that moment, I felt the bond between us mother and daughter grow even stronger. Over the next few years, our lives gradually but steadily moved in a positive direction. Emily made new friends at school, and I started getting involved in the local community. After her release, Lisa moved close to us. At first, we were both hesitant, but gradually we began to rebuild our relationship as sisters. One weekend, the three of us went on a picnic. Under the blue sky, on the green grass, Emily was running around happily. "Sarah, I never thought a day like this would come," Lisa said softly. "Yes. But this is our new beginning," I answered with a smile. At that moment, Emily came running with a bouquet of flowers in her hand. "Mom, Aunt, these are for you." Lisa and I accepted the flowers from Emily. At that instant, I strongly felt the love flowing between the three of us. "Hey, Lisa," I said to my sister. "Let's keep walking this path together." Lisa nodded with tears in her eyes. "Yes, together. As a family." That evening, when we got home, Emily picked up her father's photo for the first time in a long while. "Mom, have you forgiven Dad?" I thought deeply. It might be difficult to forgive completely. But we shouldn't forget the good things about Dad either. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is how we live afterwards. Emily nodded quietly. I want to be strong like you, Mom. Those words brought tears to my eyes. Emily, you're already strong enough. Let's keep getting stronger together. We hugged, enveloped in warm feelings. A new morning came. The sunlight streaming through the window seemed to herald the beginning of our new life. Overcoming the pain of the past, reaffirming family bonds, and starting to walk towards a new future. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, well, it's the start of a new day. May today be another happy day. Then I headed upstairs to wake Emily. Our new story has just begun. I'm truly looking forward to seeing what wonderful chapters await us. The Arizona summer shows no mercy. In late July, Phoenix temperatures soared above 105 degrees Fahrenheit day after day. My name is Melissa Hamilton, a 35-year-old Italian-American. At 5 a.m., before the sun peaks over the horizon, I'm already out jogging my usual route. I pass through the quiet residential streets of the Arcadia district, heading east on Indian School Road. Just as sweat begins trickling down my neck, the morning sun starts to rise from the horizon. This is how my day begins. When I return home, my 8-year-old daughter Caitlin is still sound asleep. Her brown hair looks just like mine. I'll style it into cute pigtails again today. Peeping into her room, I notice her science textbook left open by her pillow. She must have been studying diligently again last night. I secretly take pride in her maintaining top grades in her class. I shower, fix my hair, and put on my glasses. The reflection in the mirror is exactly what you'd expect of a product development manager at a Johnson & Johnson pharmaceutical subsidiary. I select my suit, finish my makeup, and start preparing breakfast. Mom, good morning. Caitlin's voice echoes through our quiet house as she runs down the stairs. Her smile is my whole world. Good morning, Katie. We're having pancakes today. I added plenty of blueberries. Yay! I love your pancakes, Mom. Over breakfast, Caitlin excitedly tells me about yesterday's science class, how her experiment was successful and her teacher praised her, how she's keeping an observation diary with her friends. The sparkle in her eyes is so bright, you'd never guess she experienced her parents' divorce 3 years ago. My divorce from David was amicable. He works as a pediatrician at Phoenix General Hospital. With his gentle nature, he continues to be a responsible father to our daughter, never missing his bi-weekly weekend visits. Dad's taking me to the zoo this Sunday. I smiled gently at Caitlin's words. David remarried 2 years ago. His wife, Rachel Smith, is 42 and the head nurse at the same hospital. She's known for being reliable at work, with her distinctive neat black bob haircut. After dropping off my daughter at school, I head to my office near Scottsdale Medical Center. Having recently been promoted, I'm busy leading a new drug development project. Still, the work is fulfilling. My colleagues trust me, and the project is progressing smoothly. In the evening, I pick up Caitlin from after-school care. On our way home, we make it a point to share the day's events with each other. We always have dinner together. Sometimes it might be something simple, but I try to cook homemade meals whenever possible. After dinner, I spend precious time with my daughter while helping with her homework. On weekends, we enjoy shopping at Whole Foods Market or having brunch at True Food Kitchen. This has become our cherished routine. Sometimes, we treat ourselves to some luxury shopping at Kierland Commons. Every moment spent with my daughter is an irreplaceable treasure. I maintain a good relationship with David's parents. They take care of Caitlin one weekend each month, and I'm often invited to join them for dinner. Even after the divorce, our family bonds remain unchanged. 3 years have passed, and we had established a new rhythm in our lives. Balancing weekday work and childcare, weekend family time, and bi-weekly visits with her father. Everything was stable, our days peaceful. The annual summer vacation. My daughter and I were excited about our long-awaited trip to the Grand Canyon. At that time, we had no way of knowing that this journey would dramatically change our lives. We had meticulously planned our Grand Canyon trip well before Caitlin's summer break began. We were scheduled to spend 3 days immersed in nature, just mother and daughter. To nurture her interest in science, I had included educational tours about geological formation processes and ecosystems. Katie, is your new camera fully charged? The night before departure, I called out while checking our checklist in the living room. The small digital camera was her birthday present, chosen specifically for this trip. Both the battery and spare are full. I also prepared my observation notebook. Caitlin proudly showed me her brand new notebook. The cover carefully read, Grand Canyon Research Project by Caitlin Hamilton. Such meticulousness reminds me of myself. I loaded the cooler into the car the night before, packed with drinks and snacks. Arizona summers are brutal. Staying hydrated is crucial. I was especially careful with temperature control, including extra ice packs. Departure day. I woke up before the alarm clock, which showed 5 a.m. Caitlin, who had risen earlier than usual, was already waiting for breakfast in the living room, wearing a light blue dress and her new backpack. Mom, let's go. Breakfast first, honey. You need to eat properly. While calming my eager daughter, I prepared a simple breakfast. By 6 a.m., we were leaving home. Our SUV quietly drove through the early morning streets, before the sun had fully risen. Can I play some music? Of course, but not too loud. Caitlin's favorite playlist started playing in the car. She occasionally hummed along while watching the scenery outside. As we left the city and entered the highway, the sunrise illuminated the desert landscape vividly. I'm hungry. Yes, let's have breakfast soon. As planned, we got breakfast at a drive-thru. Caitlin chose a cheeseburger and orange juice. Coffee and a bagel were enough for me. While eating in the parking lot, we reviewed our plans. About 3 hours to the Grand Canyon. We'll take breaks along the way. Are there really dinosaur fossils? That's right. We can see them at the museum. About an hour after resuming our drive, the car's digital clock showed 10 a.m. The outside temperature had climbed above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and we had the air conditioning running strong. Caitlin was writing something in her observation notebook in the back seat. That's when it happened. Mom, the air conditioning smells weird, my head hurts. Checking the rearview mirror, I could see her complexion had turned pale. What kind of smell? Are you feeling okay? There was a hint of tension in my voice. A sweet smell. I feel nauseous. My instincts immediately sensed danger. Sweet odor, headache, nausea. This wasn't just motion sickness. I immediately pulled over to the shoulder and turned off the engine. I got Caitlin out of the car to breathe fresh air. While taking out my ID from my wallet, I was already dialing 911. We'll send emergency services and police. Please provide your current location. The operator's voice rang out calmly. While relaying our GPS coordinates, I checked the air conditioning vent. There was an unfamiliar cloth stuffed inside. With my pharmaceutical background, I instinctively knew it had been used as a medium for something. On the scorching roadside, I held Caitlin close, waiting for the approaching sound of sirens. From this moment, our peaceful daily life would change dramatically. At that time, no one could have imagined the terrifying truth lurking behind this incident. The ambulance arrived first, followed by 2 police cars sliding onto the scene with sirens blaring. Under the scorching sun, I held Caitlin tight while watching the scene unfold. The heat rising from the asphalt made the tense atmosphere even heavier. Mrs. Hamilton. The paramedics rushed over. They quickly checked Caitlin's condition and began detailed examinations in the ambulance. Her blood pressure, heart rate, and temperature were within normal range. However, the nausea and headache persisted. When I gently wiped the sweat from her forehead, Caitlin managed a weak smile. Call Dad. Yes, right away. As I reached for my phone, a paramedic approached. There's a possibility of chemical poisoning. We need detailed tests at the hospital. I had the same thought. From my experience in the pharmaceutical industry, I could make some educated guesses based on the symptoms. Sweet odor, headache, nausea. These symptoms suggested the effects of specific drugs. However, it was too early to be certain. I carefully watched as police officers collected the cloth from the air conditioning as evidence. The evidence was carefully sealed in bags and labeled. One of the investigators approached me. He was a tall man, probably in his 50s. Could you please tell us exactly what happened? Moving to the shade of a police car to avoid the sun, I explained the sequence of events from departure to the incident as accurately as possible. The timeline, nature of the odor, progression of symptoms. I supplemented the situation from a professional perspective, drawing from my pharmaceutical company experience. The detective's hand moved quickly, taking notes. Have there been any changes in your routine lately, or anything unusual? Nothing special, although we had been planning this trip for a month, and I think my daughter had been talking about it at school. The investigator's expression turned thoughtful. It will take time to analyze the substance found in the air conditioning. We'll work on identifying it along with your daughter's blood test results. We'll conduct a thorough examination of the scene. Caitlin was transported to the hospital by ambulance. I wanted to ride along, but the police said they needed further questioning. I agreed to cooperate with the investigation after confirming my daughter's safety. As the on-scene investigation continued under the blazing sun, I realized the gravity of the situation. Mrs. Hamilton, did you notice any suspicious individuals around your car from last night to this morning? I traced back through my memories of the previous night. The car had been parked in our home garage. While we don't have security cameras, several neighbors do. I remembered that the house across the street had recently installed high-performance cameras. We'll need to check the street surveillance cameras. We're also starting to interview nearby residents. The detective nodded. Young investigators had already begun questioning neighbors. Sweat stains spread across the backs of their humid uniforms. The wait for hospital test results felt abnormally long. In the waiting room, I pondered the background of the incident. Was this a random accident, or a planned crime? In the air-conditioned waiting room, I clutched my phone with trembling hands. At 3 p.m., the test results finally came in. The substance detected in her blood was, as suspected, midazolam, a sleep-inducing drug. It's a medication used in hospitals. This discovery brought a new direction to the investigation. This medication is only available through medical institutions. It should be under strict control. The detective shot me a sharp look at my explanation. The scope of suspects had narrowed to medical professionals. The room's atmosphere tensed for a moment. The surveillance camera footage analysis was progressing. Around 2 a.m. last night, cameras had captured someone in black clothing lurking near our home. While the face wasn't visible, the body type suggested it was a woman. Something about the way they walked seemed familiar. Mrs. Hamilton, do you know anyone who works in medical facilities? With that question, one possibility surfaced in my mind. A constricting feeling in my chest. My ex-husband works as a pediatrician. I know several people at the hospital. I could hear my voice trembling slightly. The investigation steadily progressed. Identifying the drug's procurement route. Detailed analysis of surveillance camera footage. Interviewing related parties. Then, decisive evidence was found. The access records for the hospital's drug storage. These records, normally strictly managed, showed an unusual gap. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Only a limited number of people had authorization to enter the storage during those hours. The police officer's expression changed momentarily upon checking the records. And gradually, the perpetrator's identity emerged. A methodical crime. Someone with medical knowledge. Someone who knew our movements. All evidence pointed in one direction. In my mind, one person's image became crystal clear. After overnight observation, Caitlin had fully recovered her energy. She was organizing photos in her observation notebook in the hospital room, as if nothing had happened. However, great anxiety swirled in my heart. If that person was behind this incident. Late that night, police made an urgent contact. New surveillance footage had been found. A parking lot security camera. It clearly showed Rachel. Though wearing a black hoodie, her distinctive walk and body type matched perfectly. The footage captured her leaving through the hospital's back entrance near the drug storage late at night. The arrest was made the next morning in the hospital staff parking lot. As she arrived for work, her black bob haircut perfectly groomed and wearing her head nurse's dignified expression, police officers handcuffed her. Surrounding colleagues watched the scene in disbelief. Rachel Smith, you're under arrest for attempted murder. Rachel nodded quietly without resistance. At that moment, her usual composed demeanor vanished, replaced by deep exhaustion. The house search uncovered decisive evidence one after another. A notebook recording our movements hidden deep in her bedroom closet. A map with detailed routes to the Grand Canyon. Midazolam ampoules and syringes. Everything had been perfectly planned. Her computer history revealed traces of meticulous preparation over the past 3 months. Research on drug effects and administration methods. Procedures to make it look like an accident. Records of my and Caitlin's daily routines. It showed an obsessive level of fixation. During questioning, Rachel calmly admitted to the crime. However, her words revealed the distortion of emotions she had carried for years. "I've always been someone's replacement." That statement began her full confession. She had failed 7 IVF attempts since marriage. Her age of 42 was pressing on her. And every time she saw David and Caitlin's relationship, her feeling of being just a substitute grew stronger. "At first, I just wanted to be Caitlin's mother. But..." Her voice trembled. "When I heard the news about Melissa's promotion, something broke inside me. She has everything. Youth, career, memories with David, and Caitlin." The planning began then. Using her position as head nurse to secure free access to the drug storage. Taking out necessary drugs during night shifts. When she learned of our trip plans, she thought it was the perfect opportunity. I intended to make it look like an accident. The sleeping car falling off a cliff, but Melissa noticed too quickly. As expected of a pharmaceutical company expert. Her words carried both irony and a sense of resignation. "I just wanted to be real. Not someone's replacement, but a real wife, a real mother, but everything was fake. I myself was fake." Rachel's mental state gradually became clear. The growing loneliness with each failed fertility treatment. A heart torn between perfect evaluation at work and feeling like a substitute at home. The frustration of not being able to monopolize David's affection. All of Caitlin's mom words are directed at her. "I'm just Rachel." That was unbearable. Under the fluorescent lights of the interrogation room, deep shadows marked Rachel's face. The traces of setbacks accumulated over 42 years and twisted emotions were etched in her expression. Melissa's success felt like it was negating my existence. The more she shined, the more I became a shadow. So I thought I'd make her disappear. The confession lasted 5 hours. During this time, Rachel detailed every aspect of her plan. The reason for choosing the drug, research on administration methods, all the preparations aimed at perfect execution. The precision reflected her professionalism as a nurse. If I had succeeded that day, maybe I could have become a real mom. With those final words, Rachel heaved a deep sigh. The interrogation room clock showed 9 p.m. Outside the window, darkness had already fallen. David learned of this fact late that night. When he rushed to the police station after receiving a call from a hospital colleague, his expression mixed deep sadness and confusion. No one had understood the depth of darkness his wife had been harboring. I received this series of reports in Caitlin's hospital room. My daughter was sleeping peacefully. She still doesn't know that her life was endangered by her stepmother's distorted love. A month has passed since the incident. Phoenix's summer remains harsh. Leaving the psychologist's office, I reflected on the events of the past month. Rachel has been indicted and awaits trial. David continues going to the hospital daily with an exhausted expression. I could see the fierce conflict between his mission as a doctor and regret as a husband. How could I not have noticed? Last week's words from our cafe conversation still echo in my ears. He spoke about his days with Rachel while heaving deep sighs. How her smile gradually hardened with each failed fertility treatment. How he sensed something off about her desperate attempts to be the perfect wife but looked away. Melissa, I'm truly sorry for putting you and Caitlin in danger. His voice was filled with deep self-reproach. Although we had maintained a good relationship since our divorce, this incident cast a new shadow. Caitlin attends child psychology counseling twice a week. Fortunately, she doesn't seem to fully understand the essence of the incident. Still, the sudden environmental changes have had some impact on her. Hey, Mom. Dad looks sad, doesn't he? Caitlin said quietly during dinner one day. In her own way, she must sense her father's emotional pain. Dad's just a bit tired right now. But he loves you just as much as ever, sweetie. I try to stay cheerful in front of my daughter. However, when I'm alone at night, the terror of that day sometimes suddenly resurfaces. Every time I hear the air conditioning, I feel a chill run down my spine. David's parents are also deeply pained by this situation. His mother, in particular, seems to blame herself for accepting Rachel as family. If only I had noticed her loneliness. During Sunday brunch, she quietly wiped away tears. Afterward, she offered to take care of Caitlin twice a week. She's quietly supporting the mother-daughter recovery. In counseling, I faced various emotions. Fear, anger, and strangely enough, even a kind of sympathy for Rachel. The counselor explained that this was natural as part of the healing process. The compassion in your heart hasn't been lost. That's a wonderful thing. A new rhythm of life gradually took shape. David temporarily requested a transfer from pediatrics. He said he needed time to rebuild himself. The hospital administration accepted his decision with understanding. Caitlin gradually regained her spirit. She resumed her science club activities and started a new observation diary. Though she occasionally shows anxious expressions, following the counselor's advice, we decided to protect her pace without rushing. Mom, let's go to the Grand Canyon again. When Caitlin said this the other day, tears welled up in my eyes. Those words carried a small courage to keep moving forward. David also began showing signs of recovery. Every Wednesday evening, he started joining us for dinner. The time we spend together as three people, listening to Caitlin's school stories, feels like it's nurturing a new form of family bond. Now, 3 months after the incident, our lives are showing definite changes. I've resumed my morning jogs, and on holidays, we go to the farmer's market as a family. Though the scars remain, the strength to move forward while carrying them is gradually growing. Everyone gets lost somewhere in life. I remember the counselor's words. What's important is having someone to reach out when you're lost, and having the courage to take that hand. Our new steps were beginning right there. Outside the window, Arizona's scorching summer was coming to an end, with gentle autumn hints beginning to drift in. Like the changing seasons, our lives too were moving forward into a new chapter. The gentle May sunlight streamed through the large windows of the Cambridge Public Library. In the children's section, Jennifer Wilson smiled warmly as she handed books to her young visitors. Even at 35, she felt truly blessed to work in the place where she had met her husband Michael 13 years ago. "Hey, Miss Jennifer, which book will you read to us next?" Jennifer smiled tenderly at the little boy's question. She loved her job. Though a librarian's salary wasn't particularly high, nothing made her prouder than seeing the pure smiles on children's faces. Well. Just as she was about to answer, her smartphone vibrated. The screen showed Michael. Today was the day of the wedding preparation meeting for her sister-in-law Ashley. "I'm sorry. I need to take this call." Her husband's slightly tense voice came through the phone. "Jenny, Mom wants to meet at that place." Jennifer caught her breath. That place meant Martha's mansion on Brattle Street. It was rare for her mother-in-law to invite their family to her home. "All right. I'll head over right after picking up Amy from school." After hanging up, a heavy atmosphere lingered around her. Martha was a prominent figure in Cambridge society. And for 13 years, she had consistently disapproved of Jennifer as her son's wife. "Mom, are you okay?" Amy, who had just finished her middle school library committee meeting, peered worriedly at her mother's expression from the passenger seat. The 12-year-old daughter had inherited her mother's gentle nature. "Yes, I'm fine. It's just, we're going to grandmother's house." Amy's expression clouded. Martha was cold to her granddaughter too. Amy had desperately tried to gain the approval of her grandmother, who used the phrase, "library raised," as if it were an insult. Parking in front of the historic Victorian mansion on Brattle Street, they saw Ashley's brand new BMW already parked. She worked at a local luxury real estate company. Recently, there had been talk about her purchasing an ultra-luxury condominium along the Charles River. "Well, finally you're here." Ashley's shrill voice echoed as she opened the door. Dressed in a flashy designer dress, she looked down at Jennifer and Amy with an air of superiority. In the living room, Martha sat with dignified posture. Next to her was Ashley's fiancé, Jason Clark, a well-regarded young lawyer in the area. "You're late, Jennifer." Martha's cold voice resonated. "Working at the library?" Her words carried obvious sarcasm. "Yes, that's right." Jennifer answered with dignity. Michael silently held his wife's hand. He was a gentle husband, but his tendency to avoid conflict with his mother sometimes left Jennifer feeling lonely. "Today, we're doing the final check for Ashley's wedding," Martha began. "It's a Martin family tradition. This ring has been worn by the eldest daughter at her wedding for generations." An antique jewelry box sat on the table. Inside was a spectacular ring with sparkling diamonds. "It's worth $150,000, Ashley boasted proudly. In that moment, Jennifer didn't miss the strange glint in her sister-in-law's eyes. Perhaps it was a harbinger of the tragedy to come. The spire of Christ Church, Cambridge reached toward the fresh blue May sky. Since its founding in 1759, this historic church had witnessed countless weddings of prominent families. Today, too, sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, bathing the solemn altar in its glow. "Amy, your hair ornament is slightly askew." In the powder room, Jennifer gently adjusted her daughter's hair. Amy, dressed in a pale pink dress, secretly felt proud of her role as a cousin in the wedding. "Mom, everything will go well today, right?" Jennifer smiled at the question. However, beneath her expression lurked a faint anxiety. Ashley had seemed somewhat unsettled during yesterday's final rehearsal. "Yes, it will be a beautiful ceremony." The main hall was already filled with over 100 guests. Leaders of Boston's legal community, Cambridge dignitaries. Martha wore a satisfied expression at this gathering of high society. "Oh, Jennifer." Coming out of the powder room, they ran into Kate, Ashley's best friend and chief bridesmaid. She appeared to be filming something with her latest iPhone. "It's going to be a lovely ceremony." While nodding at Kate's words, Jennifer didn't miss the shadow that briefly crossed her face. "Ma'am, the ceremony will begin soon." At the staff member's prompting, guests began taking their seats. Jason waited at the altar, looking slightly nervous. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the preparation room. "The ring! My engagement ring is gone." Ashley's cry froze the venue, and Martha rushed over. Ashley's face had turned pale. That child stole it." A trembling finger pointed at Amy. "I definitely saw her, coming into the changing room." "Amy?" Michael stared at his daughter. The color drained from Amy's face. No. "No." The girl's voice trembled. "I didn't do anything." "Mom, call the police." Martha raised her hand to stop Ashley's words. Her expression showed something like determination. "Shameless." Martha's voice rang out coldly. "You and Amy leave immediately." "Wait." "Amy, absolutely." Despite Jennifer's desperate plea, cold stares swirled around the venue. "A librarian's daughter is a thief. I guess breeding does show." Poor Martha. The whispers cut like knives. "Jenny, let's go home for now." Michael spoke softly. His voice carried its usual indecisiveness. "Don't you believe her? She's your daughter." Jennifer's question was met with averted eyes from her husband. "Amy, let's go." Jennifer wrapped her arm around her daughter's shoulders with dignified composure. The girl's eyes were clouded with tears. Martha and Ashley wore triumphant expressions. "Dad." Amy's trembling voice pierced Michael's back. But he could only stand there, frozen. As they left the church, the light through the stained glass appeared blood red. This was the beginning of the end of their world as they knew it. In the back seat of the taxi, Amy buried her face in her mother's chest, crying. "I didn't do anything, believe me." "Of course. I believe you." Jennifer held her daughter tightly. Outside the car window, the sunlight still sparkled. But in their hearts, dark shadows had already begun to spread. No one could have known that the events of this day were just the beginning. The sound of rain hitting the windows deepened the silence in the Wilson home. Sunday morning had dawned after the wedding day, and Jennifer hadn't slept at all. "Mom." Amy's face, coming down the stairs, was as pale as a shadow. Seeing her daughter who hadn't eaten anything since last night, the mother's heart tightened. "Can you eat something? Just some toast." As she gently touched her daughter's hair, who shook her head, their bodies tensed at the sound from the living room TV. There has been a new development in the shocking incident that occurred at yesterday's wedding at Christ Church, Cambridge. The screen showed the local news anchor's face, clearly different from their usual calm expression. A social media live stream video, allegedly taken by one of the attendees during wedding preparations, is causing huge waves on the internet. In this video, Jennifer caught her breath at the footage that followed. In the church's preparation room, Kate, Ashley's best friend, showing a smiling face in selfie mode. But what was captured in the background? As if those people would have such an expensive ring. Martha's voice was clearly recorded. "If we blame Amy, it'll be perfect. Everyone would suspect her," that library raised. Ashley's voice. And then the decisive moment. The footage clearly showed Martha taking out the ring and putting it in Ashley's luxury handbag. "Amy." Michael's voice echoed as he ran down the stairs. His smartphone trembled in his hand. Taking this matter seriously, the groom, attorney Jason Clark, has announced the cancellation of the marriage. "I will never forgive this despicable act against a 12-year-old girl," he stated. The TV played Jason's trembling, angry statement. "As a member of the legal profession, I will thoroughly investigate this unconscionable act. The actions of Martha Martin and Ashley Martin go beyond mere defamation, constituting serious psychological abuse of a minor." At that moment, the doorbell rang. "Please, we'd like an interview. Could we get Amy's comment?" The reporter's shouts echoed through the quiet residential street. "Dad." Michael held Amy tightly at her trembling voice. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Amy. If only Dad had." Just then, Michael's smartphone rang. The screen showed "Mother." Michael hesitated for a moment but resolutely answered the phone. "Don't ever call again." His voice carried a coldness never heard before. "Michael. I'm your mother." "No, not anymore." "There's an explanation." What explanation could there be for throwing a 12-year-old girl, your own granddaughter, into hell? The sound of Martha choking could be heard through the phone. "Ashley was in trouble. If we could sell the ring." Money? This was all about money. "No. Our family's reputation." "Family reputation." Michael gave a sardonic smile. "Right now, your precious reputation on Brattle Street is in tatters. Martha Martin's shame is trending on social media." Meanwhile, a new storm was raging through Cambridge. Breaking news: new testimony in the Christ Church Cambridge wedding fraud case. Shocking revelation from insider about suspect Martha Martin's financial situation. Suspect Ashley Martin discovered to have unpaid contract money for luxury Charles River condominium. And the situation continued to develop in unexpected directions. A new confession had been posted on Kate's social media account. "I can't stay silent anymore. This isn't just about falsely accusing someone of stealing a ring. This was the culmination of years of scheming by the Martin family." In subsequent posts, she revealed everything. Ashley was desperate because she couldn't raise the $300,000 contract money for the luxury condominium. And Martha? She had been planning to drive Jennifer out for 13 years. Because a woman working in a library wasn't worthy of the Martin family status. The post spread instantly, shaking Cambridge to its core. At Christ Church, Cambridge, an emergency press conference was being held. As a church, we take this incident very seriously. Following the church representative's statement, Jason appeared again. I want to offer my sincere apologies to Amy and her family. The solemn church atmosphere made his words even weightier. And I pledge to thoroughly investigate this incident and pursue the legal responsibilities of those involved. Meanwhile, the Wilson home was receiving an unexpected visitor. Kate. Jennifer opened the door hesitantly. I'm sorry, at this hour. In her hands, she clutched a small memory card. This is where it all began. What she handed over with trembling hands was security camera footage from the day before the wedding. This shows that Martha and Ashley had already arranged a buyer for the ring. As Jennifer stood frozen, Kate continued quietly. I couldn't be complicit in these lies anymore. At that moment, Amy ran over and hugged Kate. Thank you, thank you. The girl's tears wet Kate's blouse. Outside the window, the rain had stopped, and thin sunlight began to shine through. It was like morning light awakening from a long nightmare. However, this wasn't the end, but a new beginning. The story of the Martin family's collapse and the Wilson family's truth would continue. The children's section of Cambridge Public Library had regained its usual peaceful atmosphere. On an early summer afternoon 1 month after the incident, Jennifer had finally returned to work. Miss Jennifer is back. Children's voices echoed through the quiet library. Usually, this would call for a reminder about library voices, but today was special. Even the library director watched with warm eyes. How's Amy? Will we see her again? Jennifer smiled gently at the children's questions. Yes, very soon. We're having a special storytelling session today. Just then, a small commotion arose at the library entrance. Ah! Amy entered, accompanied by Michael. Behind the girl stood Jason's dignified figure. Everyone. Jason stepped forward. His solemn lawyer's voice resonated through the library. Today, we have a very important apology and announcement. Local media cameras flashed behind him. First, regarding the malicious defamation against Amy Wilson. On behalf of Christ Church, Cambridge and all parties involved, I offer our deepest apologies. Jason bowed deeply. And I would like to announce the establishment of a foundation to restore Amy's honor. A small murmur rippled through the venue. The Amy Wilson Foundation for Library Children. A foundation to support children who learn and grow in libraries. Christ Church, Cambridge and my law firm will provide full support. Large tears welled up in Amy's eyes. As the foundation's first initiative, a new children's section will be established at Cambridge Public Library. It will be called. Jason paused briefly. The Truth and Love Corner. A place for truth and love. Silence enveloped the library. Then, one boy stood up. I know. Amy always helped me when she was the library committee president. Me too. She kindly helped me when I didn't understand my homework. Voices began rising one after another. The children's pure feelings rang out, as if dispelling the dark shadows of the past. Meanwhile, at the mansion on Brattle Street, a different scene was unfolding. Please limit what you take to the essentials. The court officer's cold voice echoed. Martha stared vacantly at her mansion. The flow of funds from the ring sale has been discovered, and there are suspicions of tax evasion. Regarding suspect Ashley's luxury condominium fraud case as well. Business-like conversations echoed coldly through the once glamorous mansion. Ashley had already been voluntarily questioned at the local police station. What awaited her was numerous debts, a broken engagement, and legal responsibility. Meanwhile, at the library, a warm atmosphere spread. Mom. Amy squeezed Jennifer's hand tightly. I've decided. When I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. Like Jason, a lawyer who helps people in trouble. Michael nodded quietly at those words. That's right. Dad will support you with everything he has. His voice no longer held any hesitation. His regret for hurting his wife and daughter had transformed into new determination. But before that, Amy walked toward the new children's corner. Can I do today's storytelling? The library director nodded kindly. In front of the children seated in small chairs, Amy opened a book. Today's book is The Truth Behind the Rainbow. The real story beyond the rainbow. Jennifer watched her daughter's dignified figure from behind. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But these weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of pride and hope. Outside the window, early summer sunlight poured down. And on the library's small window, a beautiful rainbow appeared. A new story begins here. A story full of hope, where truth triumphs and love overcomes trials. Christ Church, Cambridge's Wedding Hall. Early summer, 1 year later. This time, Jason stood at the altar as the groom. But this time, the bride wasn't Ashley. Your courage taught me the importance of truth. Kate smiled in her pure white dress. In the front row sat the three Wilsons. Amy proudly held a bouquet. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here. As the minister's voice rang out, Jennifer quietly closed her eyes. This was true happiness. Not money or status, but happiness supported by genuine love filled this place. Sunlight once again filtered through Christ Church, Cambridge's stained glass windows. This time, the light was warm and full of blessings. One story ended, and another was about to begin. It was a story of a more beautiful tomorrow, illuminated by truth and love.